Well, story time. When I was a kid who was obsessed with studying and who was obsessed with getting the best grades. And when I entered the high school that I'm in right now, which was the top-ranked high school, which is the top-ranked high school in the country, I literally could speak no languages except my main tongue, Turkish, but except that, I knew no other languages. I knew literally nothing in German. My high school was a German high school when I was entering. I didn't know how to say even hello. And when it comes to English, I obviously could not speak, but I would be able to, for example, count the numbers, like tell the colors, or know that like this is a freaking laptop, but I wouldn't be able to speak at all. However, my friends from this high school, because of the fact that they were mainly from like private middle schools, they actually could speak English a little bit. Not much, okay, not much, but a little bit. So, this was like 4.5 years ago. When I started this high school, I quickly realized that my English was probably the worst one out of like the 30 students that was in there. So, whenever a question was asked by our lovely teacher, Mr. Fink, I would generally try to like hide behind the other student, like that's in front of me. And Mr. Fink being himself, whenever he realized that I was actually hiding, he would always pick me, which forced me to learn English a little. So my English went from that level all the way to now a few years later. And when it comes to German, as I said before, I literally had no idea, like just zero German. Und jetzt, ich kann eigentlich ein bisschen Deutsch sprechen, nur ein bisschen Deutsch sprechen. Und um das zu überprüfen, werde ich ein bisschen jetzt Deutsch sprechen für ein paar Sekunden. Und ich werde hier Subtitles, ich weiß nicht, was das ist, Subtitles benutzen, sodass ihr eigentlich wisst, dass ich auch Deutsch kann. Aynı şekilde Türkçe'de konuşabiliyorum ve Türkçe konuştuğumda da benim sesim biraz daha böyle oluyor. So here are the exact like secrets, the things that really helped me when it comes to learning these languages, as well as in the end, I'm going to show you guys like a method that I used, which is a very fun method, and as well as an effective method that I used to learn these languages and become like really fluent. So let's jump into that. So the number one advice that I have to talk about is essentially you need to become more strategic when it comes to learning a language. There are probably hundreds of ways that you can learn a language. You can sit down and read books, you can buy grammar books, you can dive into vocabulary, you can get like a friend who also speaks that language, so you guys basically practice together. You can speak, you can like read, you can listen, you can watch movies, you can listen to podcasts, you can do a lot of different things. But the truth is, it is very important how effective these sessions are. Speaking for an hour is never going to be equal to watching a movie for an hour. Why? Because when you're watching a movie, you're probably like half asleep, just listening to the words like this, not much important, but when it comes to speaking, you are there. 100% of your brain, you're focused because you're like explaining something. How can you speak whilst not being focused? It is very important that you do activities that actually give you the best bang for your buck. So these activities, which I'm going to be talking about in the second advice, but here what is actually most important is an activity that you can use for learning a language. It depends on how much you can get your brain involved. When it comes to, for example, listening to a podcast, you might be walking and listening to a podcast, but you're actually not listening. You're like using it like a background noise. You're not really focused. But when it comes, for example, talking to someone in that language, you have to be focused and understand what they're saying so that you can respond. So 1 hour of speaking to someone who also speaks that language is never going to be equal to 1 hour, for example, listening to podcasts. So you should be doing the activities that give you the best bang for your buck. And generally, these activities include a lot of like speaking, which brings me to today's sponsor, italki. With italki, you can have one-on-one customized language lessons with high-quality native speaking teachers. And it's not only for English, you can learn more than 150 languages at italki. Something that I find amazing is that you are only going to pay for the lessons that you take. So no subscriptions, no commitments beforehand. Also, your lessons are only priced from $5. So definitely worth it considering that you are talking to a high-level native speaking teacher. Personally, I'm using italki to improve my German, but you can use italki for whichever language that you want to improve essentially, because they have a large pool of languages as well as a large pool of teachers you can choose from. As I said in the beginning, the best way to learn a language is through speaking, because speaking is the most effective way you can use to get fluent in the language that you are trying to learn. And italki makes that a lot simpler for you. If you buy $10, you're going to get an extra $5 for your first lesson if you use my promo code, if you use my exclusive promo code that is currently on the screen. However, the deal is only available for the first 50 users, so act fast. Thanks so much for italki for sponsoring this video. So the second advice, or like the second thing that I have to talk about is literally speak. The more you speak, the more fluent you become. The more you speak, the faster you learn. Because as I said before, there are hundreds of ways that you can learn a language, and literally the one that is the most effective is that you speak. speak. So when I say speak, it means literally just picking up your phone, opening up the voice recorder, and then speaking into that voice recorder. It's just simple as that. Oh, when you are reading 10 minutes a day, after that reading session is done, sit down and talk about what you just read for like 5-10 minutes, which is going to make your reading sessions much more effective. Because when you know that you have to like explain that, like explain what you are reading, you are going to be much more focused when reading. You are going to try to understand that thing much more like frequently. And when it comes to listening, for example, when you're listening something, oh, I'm going to be watching this YouTube video in that language for like 10 minutes, and then talk about that YouTube video. Oh, the guy was doing this. Oh, the guy was talking about this. And when you do that, your listening sessions are going to be much more effective, because literally speaking is the fastest way to become fluent. Nothing else, simply speaking. So here is what I personally did to become like fluent when it comes to speaking, like in the quarantine, especially when I was learning German and English for the first time. I would literally wake up. First thing that I did was I would pick up my phone. I would listen to like a 10-minute like English podcast, and I would listen to like a 10-minute like German podcast, and then I would literally speak 30 minutes of English and 30 minutes of German, and just like one recording, 30 minutes. I would start by, oh, good morning, so I'm gonna be today talking about like this and this. Oh, by the way, yesterday this happened. Tomorrow I have plans to go do this, for example. And I would speak for 30 minutes every single morning. And just imagine that. If you speak for like 30 minutes every single morning for 2.5 years, obviously you're gonna be really fluent. So the third thing I have to talk about is surrounding yourself with that language. And surrounding myself with the languages I was learning was essentially the main way I actually shortened my learning curve to learning those languages. So let me explain you guys how I learned essentially German. I was in this German high school, which meant that from like 8:30 a.m. in the morning all the way to like 3 p.m. only thing that I was dialed in was like German. I would have German lessons all the time. So for like 3 hours at 5 hours, like for 8 hours per day, I was basically bombarded into German. Obviously you're gonna get fluent. Obviously you are gonna learn that language. My whole life revolved around learning German at that time. And after that, when quarantine hit, I was like, bro, my English is not really the best. I want to improve it. So here's what I'm gonna do. And at that time, I was slowly starting my YouTube channel as well. My quarantine routine basically was like this. I would wake up, and as I told you guys, my like speaking routine, I would just record myself for like 30-40 minutes, and then I would have breakfast, and then I would sit down, get a pen and paper, and write like a YouTube video script. And writing the script was like an hour and a half. And then I would shoot the video like this. I would come in front of the camera. I would be just like, oh, I'm gonna talk about like productivity today, guys. I would record the video, and recording was like 1 hour. Writing that video was like 1.5 hours. And then I was editing the video for like 2-3 hours. And then I was working out. And when I was working out, I was listening to like a English podcast, or like I had like YouTube videos in the background. And then in the evening, I would like read English books. So literally from the moment I woke up all the way to when I went to sleep, my whole day revolved around learning English. And obviously, like in a couple of months, you're gonna make a lot of progress. People like to sit down and study for like 10 minutes, 20 minutes per day, and they're trying to get results. But if you're doing that for like 8 hours a day, obviously you're gonna like get really fluent really quickly. So as you guys know, there are sitcoms. My favorite top 3 sitcoms are Friends, How I Met Your Mother, and The Big Bang Theory. These like series are generally like 10 seasons and like 20 episodes each season, and like 20 minutes per like episode. I would watch the like episode for like 4 minutes, first 4 minutes, and then I would stop the episode and I would start talking about that like for first 4 minutes. Oh, Ross was doing this, Joey was thinking this, Rachel was wearing this. I would just talk about these weird random things, and I would talk for like 2 minutes, and then I would play the episode for like 4 more minutes and then talk 2 more minutes, which meant that if the episode was like 20 minutes, I would finish one episode in like 30 minutes. But you are watching the episode much more carefully, and you're listening to the words that they're saying much more carefully when you know you have to explain what's going on in a few minutes later. If you're someone who, for example, oh, I'm a big fan of like How I Met Your Mother, then yeah, just watch the episodes, and while you're watching them, actually speak a little bit all the way through as well. And those episodes are not going to be 20 minutes, but 30 minutes, but you're actually going to improve your language so much. I love you guys, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.